I'd just like to welcome everyone to the ACR webinar on Superstream and using Superstream within ACR. So for this webinar, we're going to take you through the process of setting up ACR, how to use ACR within the payroll, use Superstream within the ACR payroll system to generate the electronic files and the payments that are required for Superstream, for your superannuation to be Superstream compliant. What we've got today, what we're going to cover. We're going to have a look at three questions that have come up since we've introduced the Superstream compatibility within ACR. The first one is, do I have to use Superstream within ACR? Then how do I set up ACR for being able to produce Superstream compliant information? And how do I process that information within ACR? So what we're going to do, we're going to switch over to ACR itself. Now, with the introduction of the new Superstream requirements from the Australian government, ACR has introduced a new process into our payroll system called superannuation payments. This is to help make it easier for your organisation to become Superstream compliant. One simple question is, what is Superstream? Really, in its simplest form, it's a requirement by the government that employers must make super contributions electronically now. The contribution data has to be sent electronically in a message format to the super fund or clearinghouse, and the contribution payment has to also be sent electronically through the banking system. The data that you're sending and the payments need to be linked via a reference number that can be used to reconcile the notice that the payment's been made and the amount that's been received. So that's sort of the simplest way of explaining what we understand the Superstream to be. So to do this, we've added a new screen, the superannuation payment screen, that's used to create all of these electronic files, as well as having the ability to generate the cash receipt entries for the direct deposit payments. So this is what we're going to cover in this webinar. Now, the first question that we had there is, do I have to use Superstream within ACR? It's a question that's come up, and it's come up a number of times in the first weeks of us having the Superstream compatibility. The answer to that question is that ACR have provided the ability to complete your Superstream obligations with a compatible method for completing your super. If you choose to use our method to meet your Superstream obligations, you can. Otherwise, if you've got another method of meeting your obligations, you do not have to use the ACR system. It will not affect any other part of your payroll. You can never use any of this Superstream compliant section of ACR, and it will not affect your payroll in any other way. You can still generate your superannuation payment report. You can still do all of your payroll, month-end stuff, year-end stuff, and you will not affect ACR in any way if you choose not to use it. However, if you choose to use it, we have provided you a way of being able to do that to generate the compliant information that you need. So the second question we had is, how do I set up ACR for Superstream? Right, to start using the new Superstream functionality, there is a couple of things that you do need to set up. So there is an ACR only configuration, which is set up in the back end, which is a bank account you can nominate as being the bank account that will be used if you choose to use the automatically generated cash payment entries. So this will be the bank account that the payment entries will come out of. And if you want some more information about setting this up, or you want to actually get it set up, contact one of the trainers here at ACR and we'll be able to assist you with setting that up. Now, the next section that we'll need to get set up is the superannuation maintenance. This is where we actually start going through and doing stuff within ACR. A number of people will have seen these new ellipse button boxes appear in superannuation maintenance. This is where we actually start using them, because these are related now to the Superstream information. So if we click on one of these, you'll notice that there's a whole lot of information it asks for here. Out of this information, the mandatory fields are the ABN, the USI, the company name, and a payment method. Now, the USI, if you are struggling to get the USI from from an employee or from the fund itself, the government do have a website set up that you can use to assist people in looking that up. And the website is called superfundlookup.gov.au, superfundlookup.gov.au. That is available now to use to look up the USI if you need it. The other fields in here are used for different things. The target electronic service address is generally used for self-managed super funds, which have the brilliant little acronym name of SMRF. They are a way for small self-managed super funds to receive the electronic files. If you need some more information about that, please contact the ATO or the super funds themselves or your clearinghouse. They should be able to assist you a bit more in determining what information you need for that. The fund generated employer ID. If the super fund has given you an employer ID that it requires you to send it with the electronic information, this is where you can enter that information in. Payment method. There are 3 payment method options available: direct credit, direct debit, BPay. If you choose direct debit, the ACR system will assume that the super fund or clearinghouse is going to be debiting your bank account at a pre-organized time, so will not create a cash payment for this. It will wait for you to create a cash payment once the funds have been removed from your bank account. BPay, if you select BPay, the BPay biller code becomes a mandatory field. This is just indicating that the way you pay this fund is via BPay. So the biller code goes in here as the biller code needed to create the payment when you go into your banking. The third option is direct credit. This is assuming that you will be sending the funds to the super fund via an electronic funds transfer. Now, if you select direct credit, the BSB account number and account name become mandatory fields, and ACR has the ability to automatically generate the cash payment entry as well as generate a bank file output for you to upload to your bank to pay the super funds. We'll get to that as we progress through this webinar. Now, payment reference number. Payment reference number comes up 3 times in this webinar as 3 different areas that it can be set. One of them is here on the superannuation, the super fund screen. If the super fund has given you a specific reference number it needs you to use for all of your employees every time you make a payment, you can come in here and set specified value, and that will allow you to actually come in here and specify a value to be used every time for all employees of this super fund. If, however, the super fund says, look, I'm not worried, just send me the auto-generated number, or if the super fund has given you a specific number for each employee that needs to be used when paying, then you leave this on auto-generated. because the way ACR will look at this is you've got a specific reference number on the employee, that gets the highest priority. If there is a specific number set on the employee, that gets used. If there's no specific number on the employee, it has a look, is there a specific number on the super fund? If there is not, then it uses the automatically generated reference number. So just at the moment, it's important to know that you can set a reference number for all employees of a specific fund. And obviously you need to go through and set that for each of them. Yes, if you have 20 or 30 super funds there, unfortunately it does mean you do need to go through and set that on each of the super funds that you have set up. So once we've dealt with the super fund, then we get on to employee maintenance. And in employee maintenance, there's been a new field added, as well as some other fields have become mandatory as a result of this, this Superstream requirement. The new field that's been added is gender. It's just asking you whether the person is male or female. That is a mandatory field now, but it's also a new field. The other fields that have become mandatory are given name, surname, the date of birth, and at least one set of address line 1, suburb, postcode, state. When I say at least one set, you can have either a home address or a postal address, as long as you have those 4 things for at least one of those 2 types of addresses. Now, a lot of people have already expressed that majority of that information was already there. That's fine. It's just now become a requirement when setting a new employee up to have that on top of the existing requirements. As well as that, a new button's also been added. This is the Super Payments button. So what this is where, as I was saying with the reference numbers, you can set a specific reference number for a specific employee. It actually goes a little bit further than that. You have the ability to set a specific reference number for a specific type of super payment for a specific employee. So we have set up a number of different styles of super payment. Each one has an ability to have its own unique reference number added. If a super fund gives you a single reference number and says, I need it just for all types of payments of this employee only, you can simply put the same reference number in each field. Otherwise, you do have the ability to add a different reference number for each field for each employee. However, as I said, if the super fund does not ask you to do that, you can leave them blank and the system will work out who needs to have an auto-generated number and who needs to have a configured reference number. The final bit of setup that we need to do is actually under payroll configuration, under the new super button. So the PAYGW super files detail is the old file detail button that has the information. It's just been renamed. It's not changed in any way in there. The super button, however, is a new button that has been added. The do not journal invalid super has been moved to this button. And you've now got the ability to set not just a single expense account for super. You've got an expense account for super, for the super guarantee liability, as well as each of the other types of super. So again, you can either set all of these to one single account or set them to individual accounts. It just means if you allow the ACR system to automatically create your cash payment entry, one side will get put through to the bank account that can be configured. The other side of the entry will get put through to the relevant super GL account. All right. So we're now up to the part that everyone's probably come to see. how do I actually process a Superstream compliant super batch within ACR? So the first step is do your payroll as normal. There's no change to your payroll at all. You can then run your payroll, your superannuation report, the same as you had always done before. Now we're going to be using the nominal month of October 2015. You can obviously run this for a larger period if you need as well. So, as normal with this, the report will look exactly the same as it always has. We haven't actually changed anything on this report. A couple of things of note on this report though is just that the invalid and valid amounts and the extra super amount here can automatically be loaded into the batch. So it's just to be noted about the values that we have in the invalid and valid, and the extra can be brought across into the batch when it's ready. So once you've done your payroll, you may then either roll your month first and check your super report, or you may check your super report and then roll your month. Does not matter in ACR. You don't actually even need to run the super report if you don't want, although it's always a good thing to have there as a double check. But once you've completed your month, completed your period, rolled to the next period, and done your superannuation, and if you want to do your superannuation report, the period you have closed will become available for a Superstream compatible superannuation batch to be created. A superannuation payments batch cannot be run for the currently open payroll month. It must be run for a closed month or closed months. So you've still got the ability to do a 3-month, like if you're doing quarterly, but all three periods must be closed if you're doing it quarterly. So to actually do the batches, we come into superannuation payments. This is what the screen will look like when you first open it up if there is no batch in there. It is possible to start doing a batch and park it and come back to it, but I will we'll discuss some of the intricacies with that as we get to them. So to create a batch, we click the Create Batch button. Now we've actually got two options of how we can do this. We can simply click the Create Blank Batch and click Create Batch. It will set the date period that we had in the qualifiers, what the current date and the operator is, and allow us then to add an employee manually, one at a time. And we can go through then and just add individual employees one at a time as we want to a batch. However, a lot of the time you probably just want to bring all the employees in for a period and let the system tell you what it needs to do before you then go and review it. So to do that, we can say, yes, we want to clear it. We can select the period we wish to run, or we wish to look at. And as I said, this can be run for more than a 1-month period. And click Create Batch. And what this will do, the ACR system will then have a look through. And for each employee, it will bring in the amount from the superannuation report that was under the valid amount or invalid for some employees will get brought across. So $365.40 for employee number 1 has been brought across as $365.40 for employee number 1 for Spectrum Super. So if we scroll down, employee number 2 had $639.40, $639.40, employee 2, Industry Super. So as all the values come in, anybody with an extra super amount will have it come in the salary sacrifice. So here we've got 55, 88605, and 28845. So the superannuation payment screen can actually bring all of those figures over for you automatically. Now, what you've got the ability to do here is actually to edit these entries at any time. So to do that, you simply select the employee that you want by clicking on the ellipse box at the end. It will show you an invalid amount, a valid amount, the extra amount from the superannuation report. In this case, it will show you the super guarantee amount. I might actually pick one of these ones that has salary sacrifice. And this will allow you then to, if you wish, go in and enter any additional amounts that you require, or update an amount that you require. So you may have an employee that's doing an after-tax employee super contribution that does not automatically show on the superannuation report. To do that, you can check the allocation report for that employee for the allocation you have set up, find out what amount needs to be included there, come back in here, manually edit that employee to have that value show in the relevant super area. The other field to be noted here is the pay date, and we will come to this very shortly. So the employees here, this will list each employee that you have that needs to have super paid to them and show you which super fund that they are a part of. You'll notice that any of these ones here that have mandatory super are ticked, but some of these ones here are unticked. If they're unticked, it means that they most likely have an invalid super amount. So this employee is showing a $13.70 as super, but in an invalid amount. So if you need to pay this employee and you wish it to be included in the batch, you need to manually tick it. However, you can leave it unticked, and that will not include that employee in the final batch when it's finished. So we start having a look at the buttons down the bottom. The payment report button. We're going to run this to screen. This is where all of that talk about reference numbers comes into play. The payment report screen shows us what is going to be paid to which fund by which method. So what I mean by that is you have a reference number, and by reference number, sorry. So for each super fund, for each method, so in here we have BPays, direct debits, direct credit. If we had one super fund, if for some reason there was going to be more than one payment type, as there is here, they get split up. If, however, more than one type of if one payment method and one reference number generation method are the same, so if two different super funds were set up on auto-generate reference number with direct credit, they would all show under the one heading. Here, because we have it set up where we've got different reference numbers, so this employee has a personal, has an employee set reference number. These employees have a super fund set reference number. These employees have an auto-generate reference number. And we see that again here where we have auto-generate reference numbers and we have employee set reference numbers. So what this is doing, this is basically just showing us a full breakdown of what's going to be paid by which method under what reference number. If we scroll all the way to the bottom, we actually get a summary of it. So what this summary shows us is what reference number, what method of payment, how much, and either the BSB and bank account number or the BPay biller code. For direct debit, it shows blank because not all employees, with the direct debit, the fund is going to take the money out of your account, so you don't need to do anything in your bank to tell it to make the payment. So there's no relevant details there. Now, in this report, there is a paid column, which we'll come back to when we run the report again, after we've had a look at a couple of the different set pay date options. So, set pay date and process payments. They get used together to lock the reference numbers in. What I mean by that is any hard-coded reference number, like a super fund override reference number, stays the same each time. Any automatically generated reference number, part of that reference number is the system's debtor date, gets used to help generate that. So that reference number potentially can change if you were to generate a report today, leave the batch in there and come back to it in 1 or 2 days. There is a chance that that reference number could change. If you're going to be creating a batch and then wanting to actually process the payments later, that's where this set pay date field, this set pay date button comes in. Also, if you wish to not have the ACR system create the cash payments entry, the set pay date button comes into play then as well. The set pay date button, there's 2 ways to set a pay date. You can set a pay date directly on an employee by coming in here and typing a pay date that you will be paying them on. So this pay date here will come through and end up being displayed on the employee report to say, and flow through to the electronic file to say that this is the date I will be paying the superannuation on. So if we run the report again, we'll actually be able to see this time that for that employee, it now has a date and the letter M. The letter M says I've manually set that date. The letter A would say that I have allowed the system to automatically generate it. So I can set this on 1. I can use the set pay date button and set it on everybody. If I set the pay date on every employee, when I press the process payments button, what it's going to do is effectively confirm that these figures are correct and lock in the reference number. If I do not set the pay date, or if I have any employee that does not have a pay date set, and I click the process payments button, I'm going to have a couple of things happen. 1, the pay date is going to be set as today's debtor date. 2, the system is going to generate a cash payment entry for any employee that is set to a super fund that has a direct credit. It will also prepare a creditor's bank file output file ready for me to generate to send to the bank, and it will confirm and lock in the reference numbers. So what we're going to do here, we're not going to set the pay date. We're going to process payments, and we're going to create the electronic file so I can show you what it will do. So when we go to process payments, what it does, it generates us up just the summary portion of that report now. So it just shows us who it believes needs to be paid, the bank account, the biller code, and the amount. It will also, now, because I had manually set the date on this person, it's telling me that it's already paid. All of these direct credit entries, however, it is going to create me a batch that I can, it's going to create me a creditor file output, auto bank file output, that I can send to the bank. So it's telling me that I've got a total of this to pay. Do I wish to continue? Yes. And now it's locked out that set pay date because it's now set the pay date on the employees as today's debtor date. Now, if I run the payment report again, we'll see that it's now showing us that these were automatically done, except this one that I manually did. Now, just to finish off the thing, we can quit and park this batch because we can actually come over here to creditors, task, bank auto pay control list. And it's telling me this is how much needs to be paid to each of these super funds. So it's created that batch for me, ready for me to output when I'm ready. As I said, however, if you did not want to create that, that cash payments entry, you could simply set the date before doing the process payments. The process payments will only create an entry for an employee who is set to direct credit, who does not have a pay date already set. So the final thing we need to do in here now is we've brought all the people in, we've determined how much they need to be paid in super. We have now either set the pay date and clicked process payments to confirm the entry, or we have processed the payments and created our auto bank file output to send to the bank. Now we need to create the electronic file that can be sent that can be uploaded to the super fund. That we do by clicking create file. And that's it. That batch is now gone and completed. So if I go in and have a look, and go date modified, we can see at the top here that all of these ones created on the 21st, these CSV files, are the files that are created by that output. The first file here contains details of all of those payments to be made. It contains all of these details. Each file underneath it is an individual file for an individual super fund. So ACR, as part of the Superstream compatibility, has given you the choice of either being able to have one file that you upload to a clearinghouse or to a super fund, whoever's handling that for you, and they can handle distributing the details out to the individual funds, or it provides you the details for each fund individually for you then to go and actually load them up into the funds manually. Obviously the last parts of this are uploading the electronic file and making the payments you require to make to the bank. But if you need to come back and check any of these details at any time, under the reports, we now have a superannuation payments log. This allows you to see what payments were made in order of the most recent backwards. So it shows you the period it was for, what the actual date and time was, not your debtor's date, the system date and time, who the operator was who ran it, will allow you to review all the details but not change any, and allow you to generate the payment report again. for any batch that you have created. So this is the process for Superstream. We complete payroll for the month. We create the batch. We can either use the qualifiers to bring up the automatically generated data, or we can manually bring up employees. You can then update the superannuation amounts as required. You can then print the payment report to check it's okay. You can set the dates for manual payments as you need, or as I said, if you wish to not have the system create the cash payment entry, you can just set the date manually for all employees. You then process the payments. This will create the automatic cash payment journal for any employee that does not have a date set already. Then you create the file. Not a massively involved situation, but still a good one to know. Thank you very much for attending. As I said, hope you enjoy the webinar. Hope you got something out of it. If you do need anything further, please don't hesitate to come and to call us, have a talk to us, run it past us if that's all you want to do, just to get your head around it. If there's anything else we can do for you, please feel free to call us as well. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of the afternoon, and hopefully your first time you run your super runs nice and smoothly. Thank you very much. Bye.